manager of the Emerging Technologies program here at the Building Technologies office at DOE. Of course, we're here today for the first informational webinar on what we're calling the Benefit FOA. That stands for Building Energy Efficiency Frontiers and Incubator Technologies. So it's a rather good name in my view. At least it leads to a very nice acronym. So let us get started. I want to start out with relatively general language here. First of all, this is essentially a legal warning in that if we make any mistakes, and by we I mean primarily myself, if I tell you something that's wrong, don't hold it against me. That's what this language essentially says. Really refer to the FOA, to the Funding Opportunity Announcement document itself. That's where all the right answers are in case I say something wrong. So if I say something that differs from the FOA language, it's the FOA language that supersedes whatever I say. Okay, so to start off in a very broad sense, first of all, what is a Funding Opportunity Announcement, or what we call FOA for short? I suspect many, if not most of you online right now already are quite familiar with FOAs, but just in case you're not, we have this slide here. So a FOA, it gives you, of course, instructions for what to do if you're interested in possibly applying to this funding opportunity. And it gives you the objectives, what DOE is looking for, and furthermore, what you need to do in order to submit an application. So there are a few steps involved. First of all, to figure out if you're eligible or not, whatever documents are required, the specific objectives, and it also provides something about how the applications will be evaluated and scored. And then finally, it includes some conditions that are tied to federal funding. But now, on to more specific information for the Benefit FOA. This is the schedule. And by the way, I should point out before I go any further that this webinar is being recorded. And so this will be available to you, this video recording, on the Buildings Technology Office website, on the BTO website afterwards. So if there's something you want to hear again, then you'll be able to do so. And furthermore, we'll give you a chance to ask questions at the end of this presentation. So we're going to do that thing where you raise your hand on the webinar, and then we'll unmute your microphone and allow you to speak. So we're going to handle as many questions as we can, but any, I would call, difficult questions, we're going to refer you to submit them in writing through the email address shown at the bottom of this screen. And so that email address is benefitfoa@go.doe.gov. But back to this schedule. We originally released a Notice of Intent on January 17th of this year. This Notice of Intent basically is just to give you some advance warning that the FOA is going to be released. And in fact, we included a fair amount of detailed information on the specific topics that were going to be included in this FOA. The FOA itself was released this week on Tuesday. Today, right now, and as a matter of fact, we're on the informational webinar. That's February 7th. And so the next deadline coming up, and a very important one, in fact, will be the concept paper submission deadline, which is on March 6th. We're going to evaluate these concept papers, more on that later, and we expect to notify the applicants by March 21st on whether or not the concept paper has been encouraged or discouraged for submitting a full application. So I'm going to talk more about that later. We'll have a second informational webinar after that date on March 25th, and that is leading up to the deadline for submitting full applications. It's very important, and I'm going to repeat this again later, that you submit a concept paper in order for you to submit a full application. The concept papers are mandatory in the Benefit FOA. These full applications after April 21st will be reviewed by a panel of external and internal reviewers, and we will also give you an opportunity to submit replies to reviewer comments. And those responses, or those replies to reviewer comments, will be due on May 29th. Afterwards, we'll go through the selection process, make selections, and notify applicants on or around July 7th. After that will be a period of award negotiations, and we expect that award negotiation period to conclude around September 5th, with the awards themselves starting around October 1st, or at the beginning of the next fiscal year. And again, questions about the FOA, whatever doesn't get answered today to your satisfaction, should be addressed in writing to this email address. A little bit more about what we're talking about here for the benefit FOA. So in summary, we have a total of $14 million available in federal funding. So in other words, this is what DOE is bringing to the table. So added to that would be any cost share that the applicants are providing. We have altogether 4 topics, 2 of which we're calling incubators topics, and 2 of which we're calling frontiers topics. I'm going to talk in a moment more about what is meant by incubators and frontiers, but for now note that incubators are not described in any DOE roadmap, whereas frontiers are, in fact, described on a DOE roadmap or other document. As I mentioned before, but it's worth repeating, concept papers are mandatory in this process. So that concept paper due date of March 6th is indeed very, very important. Any kind of award will be in the form of a cooperative agreement with so-called substantial involvement between DOE or EERE, Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Office, that means us, and the recipient. There is also a cost share requirement in general of 20%, but this cost share requirement is reduced to 10% for entities like universities and nonprofits as well as local governments. For the incubators topics, these 2 incubator topics that I'll get to in a moment, total DOE funding will be up to $1 million for the entire project for up to 2 years of project duration. So the $1 million does not include the cost share. For the frontiers topics, which are the roadmap-driven topics, the DOE funding is a total of $2 million per project, up to 3 years of project duration. So in general, the frontiers projects are larger in size financially than are the incubators topics. The main objectives of this FOA is, in fact, to reduce primary energy consumption in USA buildings, both in the residential and commercial sector. And more specifically, we're looking for these 4 areas. And I'm going to provide some more details about these 4 topics on subsequent slides. But first of all, for the incubators topics, these 2 incubators topics. The first is what we're calling an open topic. And so by open, it means you can propose literally anything that involves building energy efficiency. But we are looking for high impact concepts. And by high impact, we mean concepts with a technical primary energy savings potential of at least 0.25 quads per year. So that's actually quite a lot of energy savings. The second incubators topic is on sensors and sensor systems applied to the building environment. Under the frontiers category, we have 2 topics. One on advanced energy efficient clothes dryers, both electric as well as gas. And the second topic is on the building envelope. And this includes both the opaque building envelope, meaning insulation, as well as the visible building envelope, meaning windows. A little bit more about incubators and frontiers topics. So what do we mean by this? Well, first of all, incubators. Throughout EERE this year, almost all of the program offices are releasing an incubators type of FOA, or funding opportunity announcement. Incubators means that we're looking for relatively early stage R&D topics that are not already described on a DOE roadmap or perhaps a DOE multi-year program plan in one of the offices, including the Building Technologies office. So we're really looking for out-of-the-box ideas, for new concepts that are currently not being pursued by DOE. Clearly, we want those with substantial primary energy savings in the building environment. And again, both residential and commercial apply. in general, for these incubator topics, we have metrics that are used to compare the applications and to compare the concept papers too, for that matter. But in general, we do not specify targets for these incubator topics. One of the key things that we're looking for in these incubator awards is their potential to influence future program directions in this office. So in other words, one of the criteria that we're going to use to evaluate concept papers and full applications for the incubators topics is what is the potential for this idea, this approach to change the direction of the Building Technologies Office in the future. Now under Frontiers, these are in general somewhat later stage R&D directions that are already defined or at least described in documents such as roadmaps, MYPP is multi-year program plan, or other DOE documents. In general, because they're already defined by these documents, that means we have both metrics as well as quantitative targets for those metrics. And in general, we specify not only performance, so for instance, COP, coefficient of performance, or efficiency or energy factor, not only is performance important, but also the cost is important as well. So that means we specify both performance and cost. Now let's take a closer look at these 4 topics. So the first topic, topic 1, this is an incubators topic. This is the open topic, meaning that any idea, any innovation is potentially applicable under this topic. So there are some stipulations here. So of course it has to be involved with building, with reducing building primary energy consumption. So we're looking for concepts that are not already supported by the Building Technologies Office, by BTO, or not described explicitly in one of our roadmaps. We're looking for other concepts that we're not already pursuing. I want to emphasize that we're not talking only about hardware here. Software concepts, for instance, up here we have design tools, are also allowed as well. The metrics for this open topic, I've mentioned this one before. We're looking for a substantial technical potential primary energy savings of at least 0.25 quads per year for these concepts. The other metric that we're looking at is a measure of cost effectiveness, in this case measured by simple payback. In the FOA document, you may have noticed there is an appendix there, the last appendix as a matter of fact, that provides some guidelines about the calculation of both the technical potential primary energy savings as well as the simple payback. So let me talk about that briefly right now. The technical potential primary energy savings can be represented in this way. So boiled down like this, it's a very simple equation. So what we're looking for is the product of the percent energy savings over a typical new technology. So by typical new technology, what we mean is, for example, let's say it's an air conditioner for a house. So the typical new technology would have a minimum efficiency at least that corresponding to a minimum efficiency unit as specified by an applicable standard. That's what we mean by a typical new technology. It's not replacing an old technology. It's replacing what would have been installed in its place. So in other words, it's a commercially available new technology that already exists. But multiplied by this percent energy savings would be the energy market size. What that means is that is the total amount of energy that's being consumed in the United States for that end-use category. We provide what we're calling a Building Technologies Office market definition calculator that you can use if you want to in order to help you calculate this energy market size. And I have a screenshot on this next slide. This is a screenshot of an Excel file that's available with the FOA that you are welcome to use if you choose to do so. You're not required to use this, but if you choose to use it, you are welcome to do so. This example that's shown here on the screen would be for defining the total market size for residential heating in new construction. So down here, this is where you fill in either ones or zeros First, you define the market. So this is for residential buildings, meaning that gets a 1. It's not commercial, so that gets a 0. But we're talking about heating, so heating gets 1, cooling gets 0. We're only limiting ourselves to new construction in this example. And so pre-2010 buildings gets a 0, new construction gets a 1. Next, we go to the components. So in the case of heating, all the components are applicable. So all components get a 1 in their column. Climate zone. We can, through this tool or through this definition calculator, define specific climate zones for specific technologies if we choose. In this case, we're talking about all climate zones across the United States. Therefore, all climate zones get a 1. And lastly, for technology type, again, all technology types here are applicable since we're looking for the total residential heating market for new construction. So once these are filled out down here, the calculator generates this number here, the total market size. So it turns out to be about 1.4 quads. In other words, 1.4 quads of primary energy is consumed or is projected to be consumed in the year 2030 for residential heating in new construction. That's what this number means. Topic 2, the second incubator's topic, is on sensors, innovative sensors and sensor systems. So we're looking for a number of, actually 3 subtopic areas under this topic. One thing that's important is that these solutions be open source. And in general, we're targeting small and medium-sized buildings for their application. So the first subtopic is the application of new types of sensors, new sensor nodes, one could say, that could be applied to buildings. And we want to encourage people to look at sensors being used in other applications today. So for example, sensors used in automotive applications. Automobiles are full of sensors, as we all know. Would it be useful, would it be beneficial to apply some of those sensors from the automotive environment to buildings? So that's one example. The 2 other subtopic areas, in addition to the sensor nodes themselves, we're also interested in entire sensor packages. And so that means not only the sensor nodes, but also their power supply, their logic, how they're controlled, and how data is communicated from or to the sensor. The last subtopic would be virtual sensors or proxy sensors. So can virtual sensors be used in place of traditional physical sensors and in order to derive the same kind of information? The metrics for the sensors topic, for this topic 2, are given here. So one thing that's important that for all these topics, for that matter, is affordability. So that's clearly one of the metrics we want to look at. Availability refers to being open, in other words, open source systems. We're not interested in funding proprietary software or proprietary systems. They must be open source. These other metrics, interoperability, scalability, deployability, I think are self-evident. Now on to the frontiers topics. The third topic is on advanced energy efficient clothes dryers. We're looking for applications here that can give us even higher efficiencies than what is described in DOE's recent rulemaking for clothes dryers, the so-called max tech values, so performance that exceeds these max tech values. The metrics that are going to be applied to this topic are described briefly here. The performance metric, the primary performance metric, is called the energy factor, and that's in pounds per kilowatt hour. As mentioned here, we want the energy factor to be at least equal to the max tech values from this DOE recent rulemaking. The specific numbers for the different categories of clothes dryers are specified in the FOA itself. In terms of cost effectiveness, we want solutions with a simple payback of less than 5 years over a minimum efficiency standard unit. We also have some additional metrics. The drying time should not increase more than 20% over baseline units. The lint in the air system needs to be addressed. The applicants should demonstrate knowledge of prior efforts. And then finally, any kind of non-measurable, non-energy, I messed that up, any measurable non-energy factor benefits should also be described as well. Finally, we come to topic 4, again a frontiers topic. This is on the building envelope. We're interested in solutions that target both the opaque building envelope, meaning insulation, as well as those that target the visible building envelope, meaning windows. And as you can see, we're interested in both residential as well as commercial applications. So we have quite specific metrics and values that are the targets here. In terms of the visibly transparent building envelope, meaning fenestration or windows, in terms of R value at the residential applications, we're looking for R values greater than or equal to 7 and greater than or equal to 5 for commercial windows. And these are whole window values, not just center of glass, but whole window values. In terms of cost, we're looking for installed cost premiums of less than $6 per square foot of window for residential, less than or equal to $3 per square foot of residential window. Now I'm messing up again. Less than or equal to $3 per square foot of window in the commercial environment. The visible transmission also has some metric here that has to be followed. And then finally, here are the simple payback in years. So in terms of cost, one can either achieve this installed cost premium, as specified over here, or if you have a comparable solution and can argue that the simple payback meets these guidelines here, that's also acceptable. Subtopic 2 is about the opaque building envelope, in other words, about insulation. And the metrics here are the same for both residential and commercial applications. In this case, we're looking for a metric in terms of an R value per inch of at least 8. And of course, these are all in English units here. The installed cost premium per square foot of wall would be less than 30 cents per square foot. Of course, visible transmission doesn't apply here, and the other cost metric would be less than or equal to a simple payback of 10 years. So what needs to be in these concept papers? They are quite short. So the idea is that we don't task you too much in the preparation of these concept papers. They are a total of 4 pages, no longer. The cover page is the first page, which is limited to 1 page. There's a lot of required information here, kind of boilerplate, but this also includes a short 200-word abstract as well on the cover page. The cover page is followed by the technology description, which is limited to 3 pages. So in the technology description, we have 3 required sections: the introduction, impact of the proposed technology or approach relative to state of the art, and overall scientific and technical merit. So we choose these we choose these headings very carefully because they correspond one-to-one with the evaluation criteria, as you'll see in a moment. In fact, I'm going to show it to you right now. So the 2 criteria that will be used in terms of the technical review of the concept papers are shown here. First criterion, impact of the proposed technology relative to state of the art. So that's worth 50%. And the second, overall scientific and technical merit, which is worth the other 50%. The outcome of this evaluation process for the concept papers will be a non-binding encourage or discourage recommendation from DOE to the applicants. So the applicants will receive this encourage or discourage, plus there are some stock comments, some essentially quite short comments that you'll receive as well. And again, I want to emphasize that this encourage or discourage recommendation is non-binding. So even if you receive a discourage recommendation, you can still submit a full application. I also want to emphasize, though, once again, that you have to submit a concept paper in order to submit a full application. We also use program policy factors in the evaluation of concept papers and full applications. So the previous evaluation criteria are the technical review criteria. Here are program policy factors. The first several bullets are basically EERE-wide. In other words, they're applied across the board in EERE. The last bullet is specific to this FOA, and that concerns only the first two topics, the incubator topics. So as I mentioned before, we're looking for new concepts or new directions that can take us into down paths that we haven't pursued in the past. And so one of the program policy factors for these first two topics would be the likelihood that, say, a successful project in either of those areas would lead actually to a new direction in a future multi-year program plan. So indeed, we're looking for really innovative concepts with potentially very high impact. Cost share. So cost share, as I pointed out above, is required. It's normally 20%, reduced to 10% for universities, state governments, and so forth. Of course, there are several rules attached to cost share, and you can read all about that in considerable detail in Appendix B in the FOA. So I encourage you to take a look at that. Some additional key points. Clearly, it's important to submit your concept paper or application correctly in EERE Exchange. So we had a sad case, for example, last year in a FOA where two documents were switched in a full application submission, which made that entire application non-compliant and therefore a waste of time. So it's a sad story that we don't want to see happen again. So be careful, make sure that each document gets submitted in the right place. This is less of a concern for concept papers and much more of a concern for full applications. Clearly, you have to hit the submit button to make it go in, so make sure you do that. Make sure you follow all the formatting criteria. That's not very onerous, but certainly the page lengths are very important. Make sure you follow the specified page length. So I've already talked about the concept papers. There are a total of 4 pages. That's it. So a cover sheet and then 3-page technical description, and that's it. The FOA document provides a table or two that helps you put together a compliant application. Again, this is not so important perhaps for concept papers, but when it comes time for the full applications, this might be more useful. And then lastly, we do encourage people, whenever possible, to submit early. So if you wait to the very last moment, then you might get caught up in a big rush on Exchange, and you don't know what might happen. So wherever possible, try to submit a bit early. This is my last slide, so a little bit about logistics here. In terms of the data that are produced under this award, the normal condition is that the government retains unlimited rights to technical data under such awards. However, one can request that some data be protected. And so such protected data is indeed protected from public disclosure for up to 5 years, as it says here. And then furthermore, invention disclosures may also be protected for some time in order to allow for filing a patent application. There may also be required annual compliance audits. So if you are a for-profit prime recipient, and if you have federal funds of expenditures, that is, at least $500,000 in any given fiscal year, then you may be required to have an annual compliance audit by an independent auditor. For other recipients, such as universities or nonprofits, there is another audit mechanism called A-133 that is also subject to the same requirement if there are expenditures of federal funds of at least $500,000 in any fiscal year. So with that, I want to show again the email address to submit written questions. And we will post the answers to those questions in writing so that everybody can see. And if you go to EERE Exchange, you can find those answers, the questions and the answers posted there under this FOA. Now, just to confirm, that's my last slide. Yes, it is. So with that, I would like to ask my colleague Jim, and And he can then do this thing where if you raise your hand, he will unmute you and allow you to ask a question. So if anybody wants to ask a question, let's try that out.
All right, Pat, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right. We had a number of questions come in while you were presenting, and I'd like to read those to you and have you answer them for the rest of the audience.
Okay.
Here's the first question. Will the slides be available following the presentation?
This entire video presentation will be available, so yes.
I presume we'll post both the video version and the PowerPoint slide deck on our website or on Exchange?
Yeah, we can post the presentation itself, sure.
Okay. Let's go to the next question. Let's see. Can you choose particular types of buildings, or must technologies be generally applicable to all commercial in-per-rent office buildings?
Yes, you can limit your technology to only certain buildings. Yes, that's fine. Okay. But remember, if you do so, then that also limits the technical potential. In other words, that limits the potential energy savings that might accrue from a nationwide point of view.
Okay. Now, there are more questions coming in while I'm talking with you, so folks, if you could just hang on, I'll get you in a second. You also, like I said, you have the option of raising your hand, and I can unmute you momentarily, but I'm still going through the list of questions that are standing. Here's your next question, Pat. Are the clothes dryers covering both residential and commercial?
I'm going to have to ask you to submit that in writing because our technical expert on that is not here, and I'm not sure about the answer. So please submit that one to the email address. Okay.
Here's the next question. Somebody went to some of the links that were provided in the FOA, and the question is there only the one roadmap in there, particularly for the solid-state lighting, or are there other roadmaps?
At the present time, that is the only roadmap.
Okay. Next question. Is the market definition calculator part of the concept paper solution?
No, but you are welcome to use it in the preparation of your concept paper.
Okay. Next question. Can one organization submit proposals for each incubator and frontier and receive funding for both?
Yes, there's no limit on the number of concept papers that can be submitted by any organization, except that the concepts that are proposed have to be distinct from one another.
Okay. Here's your next one. Do you have an idea of the number of proposals and the incubator topics? Excuse me, I got a little tongue-tied there. Do you have an idea of the number of proposals and the incubator topics and frontiers? That is, how are funds divided between the two categories?
We are required by our management to spend at least $5 million of that $14 million on the incubators topic. That's the only stipulation we have right now.
Okay, excellent. Next question. Does the awardee retain full ownership of the final end technology?
As I mentioned here, the government normally retains rights to the data that are produced. There's other legal language regarding IP issues that I can't really address here. Actually, I'm not an expert on that. Those are legal issues. There is language in the FOA that I refer you to, and if that doesn't answer your questions, then please submit the question in writing.
Okay. Here's the next one. Does the improved insulation have to be available in as little as R8 increments per 1 inch?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that.
All right, let's try that again. Is this better? Can you hear me okay?
I can't hear you very well.
All right, tell you what. Let me, I'm going to go to my...
There, much better.
Is that better? Okay, here we go. Next question. Do you have an idea of the number of, hold on, let me skip down. Does the improved insulation have to be available in as little as R8 increments per inch? In other words, would a minimum performance level of R32 be acceptable if all other material and installation requirements are satisfied?
If it satisfies the R8 per inch metric. Okay. So in other words, it's an insulation material It has to have a value of, if you have a 1-inch thickness of the material, that 1-inch thickness should have an R value of at least 8.
Okay, next question. How specific must the technical disclosure be in the 4-page submission to be considered?
That's difficult to answer. I think if it's too vague, then it may not review very well. But on the other hand, like I mentioned before, the encourage and discourage recommendation is non-binding. So even if it came back with a discourage recommendation, that doesn't prevent you from submitting a full application.
Okay, next question. This one's a little long. For the incubator open topic 1, there appears to be only one roadmap on solid-state lighting on the reference link to BTO program plans, implementation results, while the BTO multi-year plan is only 5 pages long and non-technology specific. Therefore, are all building technologies except SSL, like solid-state lighting, and the 2 technologies listed in FOA section 1.c able to be proposed under the open topic 1?
Yes.
I like that short answer. How do we know, next question, how do we know what are the existing topics covered by the BTO roadmap so that we know they are not appropriate for incubator topics? This is a rephrasing of the first one. You might want to just talk about that in general. There might be some other ones following on.
Right.
I can't see the entire list.
Yeah, in general, our roadmaps are not well defined in areas except for solid-state lighting. So applicants are pretty free to propose what they want.
Okay.
All right, for that topic 1.
Okay, I've noticed that several people have their hands raised for attention verbally. I will let you know that we'll get to you in a few more minutes. We're still going through the list of questions that have been typed in. So just give us a few more minutes. Let's see. Somebody's concerned that the market definition calculator is part of the concept paper submission. I think you already addressed that in a previous comment.
Right. So again, it's not part of the concept paper, but you're welcome to use it if you choose to come up with your concept paper.
Okay. Next question. Is American-made technology preferred or required?
All full applications are required to include a manufacturing, I believe it's called a manufacturing plan. It is not required that manufacturing take place in the United States, but one would have to disclose in that plan if the manufacturing would indeed take place in the United States or elsewhere.
Okay. Next question. Is the cost share included in the Frontier program?
Yes.
Next question. Is a proposal on attic insulation being discouraged? There was a discussion in the FOA. Please define what is meant by attic insulation.
So in other words, if there is insulation whose application is only for attics, that is discouraged. If it's insulation that could be applied to walls and attics, that's okay. But if it's only for attics, that is discouraged.
Okay, next question. For national labs, is there any constraint on the source of the cost share funds?
That's described in the FOA document. I don't know the answer to that.
I think the general answer is that the cost share funds cannot be from another federal source. And that's the general answer, but again, the details are in the FOA. Next question. Can you comment on potential interest in energy generating or harvesting technologies rather than strictly energy efficiency?
If your proposal leads to less energy consumed, less fossil fuel energy consumed in the building environment for building end use, then yes, it's okay.
Next one. This is a little open-ended. What about exceptions to the technologies proposed?
I'm not clear about that.
Yeah, I was a little unsure about that one. Perhaps. Okay. Where can one download the multi-year plans, the MYPPs?
The link is provided on the FOA itself.
I thought so. Okay, I thought that we had put that in there. Let's see. Hang on for a second. Let's scroll down this list. It keeps growing. Can you apply for assistance to improve upon an existing energy rating process that would enable a product to prove its energy savings potential?
In general, that could be an energy savings approach, and so yes.
Okay. Let's see, the next one I've already answered. How can we get a list of currently funded research activities that DOE is committed to at the national labs in the 5 core areas listed in the FOA on page 2, section IB in the FOA?
Our only source of information for that is our website, the Building Technologies Office. So that would give you the most information by perusing our website. Otherwise,
okay,
as we've referred to before, we have the solid state lighting roadmap document. We also have the existing MYPP document, although as was pointed out earlier, it's not very specific.
All right, these are some fairly straightforward questions coming up next. Once you're encouraged, what are the next steps, or what does that look like?
After that recommendation is handed down, the next step is to prepare the full application.
Okay, and instructions for that are in the FOA. Where do you get the market size calculator? This one I can answer. That's actually posted in Exchange with the forms that you submit for the full application, I believe. Is a technology demonstration required as part of an incubator proposal?
In general, we are funding research and development, not demonstration.
Okay, next one. For concepts that are not chosen, are the ideas protected from the public, or are they the property of EERE?
I don't know the answer to that question. Please submit it in writing.
Hold on, I have to scroll down again. Are the prime and sub-teams preferred? I'm not sure I understand that question.
Yeah, I don't quite understand that either.
Okay, next one. Excuse me. Are there any technologies pertinent to building efficiency improvements, especially fenestration, that are discouraged due to being already pursued by BTO? I'm sorry, we've already covered that. Let me go to the next one. What is the required technical maturity level for the incubator topic?
There is no specified technical maturity level.
Let's see. Will technical information in the concept paper be available in the public?
No.
Okay, next one. That question didn't get finished. Hang on a second. You've already answered that one. Now I'm going to ask you it's slightly different. Can multiple proposals be submitted which consider the same target building but have different team members?
Can you say that again, please?
Can multiple proposals be submitted which consider the same target building but have different team members?
If I understand this correctly, as long as they describe distinct approaches, so I would hope that the difference between these concept papers is not just different team members, but rather different approaches and different team members.
Okay. Let's see. This is an IP question. If the solution proposed is a software, not a hardware, is it correct the government would own the data the software produces, but not the software? So can the software be licensed out after, as long as it is open source?
I don't know the answer to that. Please submit that in writing.
Okay. Next one. This is a financial question. Oh, I think I know the answer to this one. I was just discussing that with the Financial Assistance Office. Here's the question. The sub-award section stipulates a budget justification is required if work performed exceeds $250,000 or 25%. However, the EERE 159 form, the Excel workbook, instructions state a $100,000 limit. The question was, which one's correct? I want you to post that one in writing so that I have that correct, but my current understanding is that the 250K number is correct and that the form needs to be updated. So please submit that question in writing so that it's captured for not only for the people that are listening today, but for other people who were not able to make the call. Next question. Are concept paper and full applications confidential or open to the public?
They are confidential.
Okay, next question. For frontier programs, what is your expected time to market? This seems very important since if it is short, then it limits innovativeness of the new ideas.
In general, as we say, the frontiers topics are relatively later stage compared to the incubators topics. Having said that, we don't specify a time to market. In general, we would like to see a commercialized product, if not at the end of a project, but within a few years of project completion.
Okay. Next question. Does cost share come from building owners or from technology vendor proposing solution?
It can come from any allowed source.
Okay, next question. Is there a technology to market or TT&O cost contribution required for incubator proposals? If so, what is the percentage of the total budget? I'm not sure what TT&O is.
I think, I'm not positive either, but I believe that is similar to RPE applications where they require a set percentage of the budget be devoted to market or to market-facing activities. At the present time, we have no set requirement like that.
Okay. Next question. It's another cost-sharing question. Does the cost sharing only include direct project cost or indirect costs also?
Please submit that in writing.
Okay. Next question. Will thermochromic film for smart windows be a topic that you are interested in?
As specified in the FOA, one of the topics not of interest is dynamic windows and films. So the answer is no.
Next question. For the 10% cost sharing for the incubator program, are there any specifics on what counts and what does not? For universities, does student support count as cost share?
Please refer to the FOA itself.
Let's see, I think we just covered this one. Are applied films excluded, even the new coding technologies being proposed?
Dynamic films are discouraged for Windows. Non-dynamic films, such as low-E films, for example, are not dynamic in their operation and therefore are allowed.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Can energy savings to non-building users be added to the savings derived from building savings?
That can be described, but our primary goal is to save energy in buildings.
Okay, here's the next question. What is the order of magnitude of the probability of success for incubator applications?
I'll know much better in about 6 months.
There you go. Sorry, we really don't know. Will IP be protected in the ideas that are submitted?
There is language in the FOA that describes how you protect IP. So please consult the FOA for that.
Okay, and I'll just add some general comments on that one, Pat. IP protection is also a function of the size of the organization submitting the request. It varies from one organization to another, whether I think the distinctions are between whether you're for-profit, non-profit, or state and local government. There's variations in the Code of Federal Regulations that apply. Let's see in the next one. In the FOA, the dryer improvements appear to be limited to electric only. These slides do not mention that restriction. Are gas dryer improvements now included?
The gas is included.
Okay. What is the expected turnaround time for answering questions submitted to the website? I'll answer that one. Our internal guideline is 3 business days. Those are the questions that are actually submitted to the email site. I'm not sure about questions submitted to the website, but it's an email address you submit to. Will the audio be included with the recording as it has been cutting in and out? The phone number isn't working either. The intention is to post, I'll answer that one, the intention is to post both the, I believe the slide deck itself, Pat, if I'm not correct, and the webinar. Right. But at the very least, we'll post the webinar.
That's right.
Which does have the recording of the audio on it. Next question for you, Pat. Please clarify the use of 30 cents per square foot metric lot in the residential and commercial row of Table 6, i.e. this is an additional 30 cents per square foot for purchase cost of each inch that's greater than R8, insulation relative to the cost of existing insulation products and exclusive of installation cost.
That is an incremental cost figure per square foot. In other words, per unit area of insulation.
Okay. I think we've already covered this. Our non-SSL lighting controls responsive to this FOA.
Can you say that again, please?
Are non-SSL lighting controls responsive to this FOA?
Yes, they're allowed.
Okay. Let's see. I've got a correction from Christopher. He says he was talking about. He says, sorry, I meant for incubator programs. What is the expected time to market? That's a correction from an earlier question.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer it in a similar way. Relatively earlier stage, meaning that then there would be a longer time to market correspondingly. So how long is long? But that depends upon the particular application.
Okay. Next question. Can an organization receiving funding for a project that is already in progress, or does it have to be a project not yet started?
It cannot be something which is already being funded elsewhere. So as long as what is proposed is distinct from what is already being funded, then it should be okay.
How many awards will be distributed for each of the topic areas?
There is no set amount on number of awards for each topic area. I'll go back to my earlier statement about the funding. So we are required to spend at least $5 million on the incubator topics. But otherwise, we have no other stipulations.
This is an interesting one. Are small businesses given any preference since they lack funding as compared with large companies?
In general, no.
Let's see. I'll skip that question. Apparently some folks were having trouble with audio during the presentation, and I apologize for that. That's outside of our control. I'm hoping that if you have to go back and listen to the recording, it should be okay. Let's see. Are residential buildings preferred over commercial buildings?
No.
Okay, I'm going to skip the next question. Again, we're going to post this information on the website or exchange later. What is a ballpark number for projects going to market?
You mean a percentage?
That's just a question, a ballpark number.
I don't understand the question, so please submit in writing.
Okay. We've already answered that one. It's a similar question from somebody else, but it came in rather late. I'm going to go ahead and restate this one, just so apparently it's being asked by more than one person. Here's the question. Is it generally discouraged for multiple proposals associated with the same target building, but on different topics to be submitted?
No, as long as it's different concepts that are being described in different concept papers, I think it'd be fine.
And here is the last written question. After that, I'm going to start looking at the handful of, I think there's a, I'm going to take a look at hands raised momentarily. Are minority businesses given any consideration?
If we look at, actually I don't know the answer to this. If we look at the program policy factors, that is not listed here. So in general, the answer is no.
Okay. I did just get one more question pop up in the text. What decision metrics will be used to make awards? Payback, others?
The evaluation criteria are specified for both the concept papers and for the full application. So when you get to the full application stage, it will be a combination of those technical evaluation criteria as well as these program policy factors.
Okay. Pat, that is the end of the current list. I'm going to unmute. Let me take a look at this list here and see how many people have their hands raised. We'll now start. We have 4, 5, We have 4 people with their hands raised, so I'll go through those one at a time. Hang on. I will let you know when I've unmuted you. Chung-Lin, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You are now unmuted. You can ask your question. Chung-Lin, can you hear me okay? I've unmuted your microphone. Okay, it's perhaps he's walked away. I'm gonna mute that one again. I'm gonna go to the next one. Michelle. Michelle, you are available for speaking now.
I think I am.
Yes, I think I heard somebody.
What would be a ballpark figure number for the number of projects going to market? You know, like if you give out 10 awards, typically is there like an average, say, time period for getting those to market?
In general, what we say here anyway is our goal is, generally speaking, within about 5 years of commercialization. So that means then, okay, if a project is 3 years long, then it, you know, there's a chance that it won't quite be ready yet. In some cases they are, in some cases they aren't. I don't really have any numbers to give you though.
I have one other question, which is how, if a project was funded through this program and an SBIR topic was to come up that's similar, would this would this award then disqualify you from applying for any SBIR funding?
Well, like in any case, you'd have to make sure that, let's say if you applied for an SBIR afterwards, that your proposal for the SBIR is sufficiently different from your proposal for this FOA, so that there's no overlap or very little overlap. If you
technology? I'm sorry.
I mean, if you propose exactly the same thing, then it would not be correct.
And you're speaking technology here, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if you let's say if one submits the same proposal to 2 different federal agencies and you get awarded, then you can't use the same proposal twice, right? You can't get funded twice for the same work. Yeah, so that's all I'm saying.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, Michelle, I'm going to go ahead and mute your speaker, and I'm going to go to the next person online. Mikhail, I'm unmuting your microphone so you can speak now. Can
you hear me?
It's a pretty bad reception, Michelle. I'm sorry. Mikhail, I need to mute your speaker. This one is not working. I'm sorry. Okay, Mikhail, I apologize for that. For some reason, there's a tremendous amount of noise coming in on your sound system. I'm going to ask you to submit that one in writing if you can. Or if that's not available to you, please submit to the ER Exchange mailbox for this particular FOA. I'm now going to unmute Milton. Hang on just a second. Nope, wait a second. He took his hand down. Let's see, Michelle, you still have your hand up. No, I guess I didn't turn it off. Let's see. I am unmuting Amber. Amber, you now have...
Hi, I was just wondering how you're going to be verifying the actual energy saved.
Can you say it again, please?
How will you be verifying the actual energy that's saved?
Well, from the application, we of course we look at the analysis or justification that you provide, and that's what we make our decision on, right?
Right.
Are you saying like after the fact, like after the project is completed, do we go back and evaluate, did it save as much energy as was originally?
Yes, Yes, after the project is completed, because I don't actually have a new technology to suggest, but our company does those evaluations. And I don't know whether or not there's any room for that kind of submittal.
I see. Okay. Well, that's an interesting topic, and it's certainly a different direction. In general, we for any given project, so we have distinct milestones and at times go no go stages. So they have to let's say applicants, when they're doing a project, they have to meet certain performance and or cost targets. So in general, they meet those say performance targets. Could be, depending on what they're doing, it could be a test in a laboratory or perhaps a test in a real building, depending on the circumstances. And so, yeah, in any given project, there are certainly milestones that people have to meet. So in that case, yeah. So I would say then in general, they are required then to evaluate their technology step by step.
So they evaluate their own technology and report on their findings?
Yes, generally that's how it's done.
So do you think there's room for third-party inspections instead?
There could be. Propose something.
Okay. I think I will.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate
Amber, do you still have other questions? I'm sorry. I was muting your mic when you stopped. This is Jim.
Oh, no, that's okay.
All right.
I hear you. No, those were my questions. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's see. I'm going to unmute Christian. It's not showing as a raised flag, but he's got via text, he says he has a question. So Christian, you now have you're unmuted, so you can talk.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you just fine.
Yes, we can.
I just wonder how feasible is it for an individual to apply without being a sort of legitimate, established LLC or company of sorts? Sorry, go ahead.
I said it's possible. We do take into account the eventual, say, commercialization likelihood or commercialization path of a concept. So if you're thinking about a proposal, then you would probably have a stronger proposal if you're hooked up with a company or some other organization. But on the other hand, you're certainly allowed to submit on your own behalf.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Sure.
Okay, Christian, I'm unmuting your mic now. Let's see. Pat, while we were talking, I had a couple of more questions come in. Well, maybe we got a third one here. Hang on. This is similar to one that was asked before. What is the anticipated award amount? Is there a ballpark so one project does not get most of the award? How many projects could be awarded?
So we specify the dollar amounts, the ranges anyway. I think in the FOA there is some language where we estimate a total of perhaps 14 awards, but that could go up or down a bit.
Right, and additionally in the FOA there's language specifying the anticipated range of dollar values for the incubator projects and the frontier projects. Here's the next question. Are partnering proposals preferred over a single vendor?
If the partnering strengthens the proposal, yes. So in other words, if we think because of the partnership the proposal is stronger, maybe it brings in additional expertise or additional commercialization potential, then the partnering is looked upon favorably. But having said that, partnering just for the sake of partnering is not necessarily favorable.
Okay, one more question here. When you said previously the project can't be something that is being funded elsewhere, do you mean it can't be funded by outside investors? It can be self-funded by the organization, correct?
Right. Really what I'm talking about, it can't be funded by a federal source.
This is the last question for the time being. Can a project cross areas of interest?
Yes.
Okay. Pat, that's the end of the questions that have been submitted to date. Whoops, I spoke too soon. I've got several more
We're out
coming
of time
in.
anyways. Well, make this the last question. How about that?
Okay, we'll make this, well, it's only, I'll tell you what, it's 3 more questions, or is it, yeah, it's 3 more questions. I'm going to tell people no more questions after this. Can we just take care of this? We can go over a couple minutes if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay, no more questions, please. Any other questions, please submit via Exchange. Can projects seeking slightly less than the 500K qualify for consideration?
Yes, that's a maximum amount
And
for,
next
for
question.
a given topic.
Okay. Would VAWT technologies from 7 to 250 kilowatt hours for both commercial and residential applications be considered?
Say that again, please.
Would VAWT, it's an acronym, technologies from 7 kilowatt hours to 250 kilowatt hours for both commercial and residential applications be considered?
I have to admit I don't know what that is, so please submit
Okay.
that in writing.
Okay, well those are, that is it. We'll take no more questions. We've gone only a few minutes over the time allotted. So Pat, if you
All
want to
right.
go into your closing comments.
Yeah, thank you everybody for participating and good luck.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop this at my end here. Let's see. Thank you very much, everybody. Good luck with your proposals.